pledge allegiance to
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to call to order the first half of our two meetings for the budget meeting, beginning at 1800 hours, March 25th, 2021. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of the State of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting of the Egg Harbor City Common Council was provided in the following manner. Advance written notice of this meeting was posted on the Egg Harbor City Hall bulletin board. Advance written notice of this meeting was posted on the Egg Harbor City website. Advance written notice of this meeting was sent to the Hamilton Gazette, the News, the Press, and the Current. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic and social distancing requirements, the meeting is being conducted via Zoom and conference call. The meeting is also being recorded to air on the Egg Harbor City website and Channel 97. Roll call, please.
Mayor Petty,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Clark,
Here.
Dash,
Here.
Heist,
Here.
Sefton,
Here.
Trithall,
Here.
Wright,
Here.
Ritchie.
Here. All right, may I have a motion to open up the budget workshop scheduled for 1800 hours? I'll make a motion. Second, please.
No second.
All in favor?
I'm
Aye.
sorry,
Aye.
I didn't call Timbers.
Oh.
Carl Timbers.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? So budget workshop is now open for discussion. Anybody like to start?
Maybe Jody.
Yeah, Jody, would you like
Okay,
to
so I was
start?
gonna say, if nobody has any comment, I'll kind of go through a couple things. On the revenue side, a little bit of update. I did get some updated numbers from the court. I do think we could take out about another 13,000 that we had budgeted, so that's good news. It looks like the fines are starting to come back up. We had some decent revenue for January and February, so that was good news. So I'll reduce that in the budget for what we'll consider. We're so tentatively supposed to introduce at our council meeting. Just so everyone's aware, even if we're not completely happy, I know this is kind of just going to still be a working point. We'll be within the state's calendar. If we introduce tonight, we still have plenty of time to make changes before final adoption. It does not, we can still lower the taxes and the rate and all that. So don't feel that this is just because we're introducing tonight that we are stuck with these numbers. You can change anything prior to adoption. It's just kind of keeping it rolling so that way we can still be within the state budget calendar, because you have to have a public hearing, you have to advertise, there's a lot of things that have to be done. So this can kind of keep us moving in the right direction. And right now for introduction, I'll kind of go through some stuff. We're not going to have, we're still waiting to find out. I'm going to talk about the COVID funding that's coming out. But we won't really have enough information for tonight, but that's like an example of something that we can hopefully put in the budget for final adoption. So the only other change besides court was we have on tonight's agenda for a increase for one of our building inspectors. So I'm just going to change the construction code revenue, increase that by 1,500 to offset the increase in the appropriation. So there's no real change from that. I talked to our auditor the other day. Can everyone hear me okay with this? It's a little hard to talk.
Yes.
Okay. So the COVID money, the state's hoping to be able to put out guidance on this either tomorrow or early next week. But it looks like tentatively how it's going to work is you can use it to offset a loss in revenue, not only from 2021, but things that you had lost in 2020 as well. So you're sort of getting double to make up for the 2 years, basically. So I kind of looked through our revenues. It looks like we had pretty much the majority, we were kind of lucky in one way that most of our revenues weren't too drastically affected. But the other licenses were down due to COVID, are actually three, our rent of city property and the lake fees. So we can hopefully catch up not only what we lost in 2020, but you're only allowed to budget in 2021 what you had anticipated, what you received the prior year. So we're already down because last year was down. So we could make up for that difference as well. Another thing, we can use it, our utility revenue was down a very large amount, about 140,000 last year. So we could use some of that money to offset the utility revenue that went down. So we can use it towards that. And then if we wanted to put some of it back into current, instead of right now, there's 100,000 of fund balance in the utility being used. So that could possibly go into the current fund instead. You could give some money to the current fund. It's just options that we'll have once we have a little more information. So
Jody,
Oh.
that, what we're down, is that where people have not been able to pay their bill? Is that why we're down in revenue?
I think, well, the two reasons that the revenue was down drastically. One, usage was down quite a bit. I think because the businesses and schools were shut down. So usage was down about, I think it was like 15,000, like 150, hold on, I'm saying, I don't know. But anyway, usage was down drastically. So that was one big reason. And the second is you are not allowed to be charging interest and you couldn't send any utility water accounts to tax sale. We have an accelerated sale. So normally by the end of the year, if someone hasn't paid, it goes to tax sale. That's something that pretty much winds up getting sold because people know they're going to get it. So we had normally our receivable balance is like a few $1,000s for bankruptcies, things that you're not allowed to send to tax sale. This year it was over $100,000. So that's
So I guess what I'm asking is that money the money we're going to recoup once people start getting back on their feet, or is that just like a sort of hit or miss type thing?
I think it'll be a combination because the usage was down, that there's nothing
Right,
to
we're not going to
recoup.
get the usage back.
But as far as the
other-
receivable side of it, yes, eventually that should be recouped because at some point I would think they're going to allow you to either shut someone's, if people eventually don't pay
Right.
at some point, that moratorium
People
will
are going to
end.
have to catch their bills up some way, somehow.
Exactly. At some point, there will be an end to that.
If
Well,
we,
the big thing is the schools were closed, so they're not using as much water. That's a big account right there.
And that's something we can't recoup. That's just gone.
Correct.
If they open up in September like they're supposed to, we'll be able to recover. We won't recover the money, but we'll still have the same amount of estimated revenue.
I'm sorry, Steve, did you have a question?
So if any of the money is replaced that was lost in the utility income, will that in turn help the taxpayers as far as a lower tax rate?
Normally, just putting something in the utility wouldn't, but you are allowed to put fund balance from the utility into the current fund as a revenue.
Okay.
So if we didn't need the fund balance in the utility, you could anticipate that in the current and offset it that way.
Okay.
To kind of balance out what you're basically giving of the other money to
Okay.
the utility.
it
Does that
will be
make sense?
considered renewable revenue, right?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Will it be considered renewable revenue?
I would say no, because it's kind of a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Actually, the COVID money is supposed to be over 2 years. So it should be something that we could, I think that I believe our allocation is 398. I'm still waiting, once everything's finalized, but that would be spread out over 2 years.
I guess just to clarify my question, is there any way, I know it can't go directly to the budget, but is there any way it can be used in a manner that it actually helps the taxpayers as far as what they're paying
On the current fund side, you mean, or on the utility?
on the current fund?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
let's say you gave 100,000 to make up for the revenue. Let's say we used $100,000 of COVID money.
Okay.
That 100,000 of fund balance that's sitting in the utility, you could appropriate that into the current fund and offset the current fund budget with that
Okay,
100,000.
all right, very good.
I think the point is that once everything opens up, the revenue should return to normal. And the schools will be using the, water and everything else. As far as the fund balance, once we sell the utility, that's fair game. So.
So I think by the time we get to introduction, I mean, I feel hopeful that we're, going to be able to really bring it down a lot. So,
What, I'm sorry.
Hey, Joe.
yes.
Go ahead, Councilman Trampo.
Hey, we're talking about all the funds and everything. Hey, Jody, you finished with the utility and the fund? I didn't want to interrupt.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay. Hey, I got a question for you. I know the mayor was talking about, this may be off point. What do you call it, with the police department for another police officer this year. I was thinking about it, and the $40,000 I believe is budgeted. If we do hire this year, that's like 100-some thousand with benefits, uniforms, and everything else. And a police officer, if we hire recently, would not be available until 2022 because of hiring and then going to the academy and FTO. I was just thinking that due to our financial constraints and the impact that the citizens have, I think that we should take that out of the budget and put it back in and allocate it for next year.
Well, I can comment on that. First of all, we have committed to fully staffing the police department at 16 persons. Okay. If you recall, last year I was hammered because we could not adequately staff the police department. That's number one. Number two,
Well,
we also have a police officer who is who actually is on the civil service list. He's a PTC. I mean, he's a SLEO2, and he already collects a salary. So your estimation of $100,000 would not be correct. It would be partially correct. I guess Jody could give you that estimate. He's a single person, so the benefits would probably be what, Jody, $12,000 or so for a single, 15, something like that.
Health insurance is about 12,000.
Okay, 12.
About 12,000.
And then half of the salary, which he already receives, is like another 15,000. So you wouldn't get the 100,000. And I'm not going to take the chance of jeopardizing the safety of the Egg Harbor City citizens, okay, for that, because we have committed to fully staffing the police department. And I think that's a priority.
Well, I do remember when we had conversations, 15, when we talked about with the DCA and stuff like that, we were talking about 15 and other conversations we had.
No, the DCA, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the DCA was talking about 9.
9,
So
correct. I
that-
understand. No, I understand that.
Safety
But
director.
at this time, there's other places that, they had budgeted for, different employees. They've had to make the crunch because of the numbers. We're in such a deficit, as it is. We were looking at 14 cents on, percent increase. One police officer at this time, they won't even be on the street until 2022.
No,
If we put
that was not going to happen because we do have an officer that's already dual certified as PTC and SLEO2 that could move up into the full-time position. Then we could cut the SLEO2 in half and there would only be one SLEO2. So it wouldn't be that much of more of an expense. And I really don't think that's something that should be negotiated for the safety of Egg Harbor City citizens.
No, that's just my opinion. That's what I brought up. I just think that we're in that crunch time and everything else with equipment and sorry, I lost my train of thought. That's my thought. I was just bringing up to the council and everything else like that. I know I'm a public safety committee chair, and I was just thinking that the 9 months we have left, that we have, we're not going to see per se. Just say I don't know where he is on the list. Unfortunately, that's not divulged to me at this time. I don't know if it's rule of threes, if he's number 1 on the civil service list or whatever. I'm just saying this, it's, we do have to make some changes. Some area police departments, have, have done a hiring freeze,
No, we've never done a hiring freeze in the police department, just so you know, not in Egg Harbor City. It was a lack of candidates and the.
Oh, no, I'm saying that all I said was, I didn't say that, we have had in the past. I said other in the, municipalities in the area have done hiring freezes.
Well, public safety isn't negotiable as far as I'm concerned.
I understand that. I am in public safety and, am affected by this as well.
And
I'm
just,
I'm just saying,
I have the final say in the police department budget, so thank you for your input, though.
Jody, you can proceed.
That was all I really have for revenues, but just, we had talked about, I guess, at the last meeting, so two things that we had thought about possibly adding, so I guess I want to know if council, what your final decision is, and like I said, even if we maybe put them in for introduction, once we have some more information, possibly we won't need to use them for adoption, but I know council probably does not want to introduce at the current rate that it is. So we have those 2 land sales that we could put in, that's 38,000, and we have a reserve for land sales from the Egg Harbor North when they have to give money for each time a house is built out there, which again, that's probably not going to be we're probably going to basically, we would be using it up. It was the original idea when that money was started to be set aside was to be used to offset debt service. So it is less than what our debt service is. So I do feel it would be used for the manner that it was intended. And if everything's wrapped up by the end of the year with the New Jersey American, which it should be, hopefully all our debt next year will be able to be paid off, and we're not going to need that in our budget next year. So we do have 94,000 of that money as well that we could put in.
How much is that?
It's 94,000 from the reserve for land sales, 94,500, and 38,000 from land sales. So that brings it down to a 6-cent increase. And actually it would be even a little bit less because once I make the court change, that'll be. So it'll probably be about 5.5 cents is what we would wind up introducing at. And again, I think once we get the COVID money, we could bring that down even further. But I think as a starting point, it's a lot better than where we were at.
Yeah.
So does anybody have any thoughts or opinions?
Yeah, I feel as though if we get half of the COVID money, we can definitely have a 0 tax increase. You and I talked about this earlier, and there's plenty of ways that if we actually do get the money, which the state has promised, it should be in our account within 30 days or so. So once we get that, there's certain things that that qualify to use that money for, and I think we'll be fine. So I don't think we have to push the panic button yet.
Mayor, can you give us some examples on how we could use it?
Well, it's essential personnel. It's all COVID related expenses. And to keep, what else, Jody? You looked at it today too.
Like I was saying before, the revenue,
Like layoffs and things like that.
any public works time for like fogging, things like that. I think we could count some of that. We could
Revenue, lake revenue, like Jody mentioned in the beginning.
relate the front yards and people that we need.
Court revenue because of COVID.
I don't know if I mentioned that, the court revenue. The court revenue is down so much, I would think that we would be able to use a large portion of that as, to offset the court revenue as well.
hey, Jody, the Director Emmer and the report that Lieutenant Hutton has done, how is the revenue down when they've increased their ticket production?
Well, there was no court for so long. Like I said, the fines have finally started to come back this year, the last.
Okay.
But the majority of 2020, it was very, very low when the courts first closed in like March. It started to pick out like November and December. It finally started to pick back up. And January and February were really good. So.
And one thing I would point out, the safety director is reporting traffic stops, but when in actuality, you report the amounts of summonses and you can go back to your records and look at that. That's really the only way we collect revenue, not on traffic stops, but on summonses. So for example, this 2-week period, there was 195 traffic stops, yet there was only 61 summonses issued. So that's the difference. Now, when Chief McCoggin was here, there usually ran like 90 summonses per 2-week period. So just to give you a example of the difference.
Well, compared to years before, that the ticket writing has increased quite a bit.
No,
That's
no,
why I was just asking,
it
you
has,
know,
look back at your record, Scott. You get the emails as
I
well.
got them.
And they haven't increased. I told you when John McCoggin was here, there was 90 plus tickets written a month.
What was that, 2018, 17,
No, probably like 16.
16? Okay, so from, the following years
No,
until,
you can look at it.
everything else.
It's not, I can give you that information if you need it.
Actually, yes, if you could, please. Email it if you don't mind, please. Thank you.
Jody, I don't know if this would correlate or not, but I don't know if we had any employees that were out on a 2-week quarantine that we had to pay
So I'm
their,
gonna check with the police because I'm kind of thinking there's gotta be there. I'm sure we really kept a lot, really
Would that
great
be-
records for
that would be something
2020.
we could take out of the COVID money to
Exactly.
replace what we put out of our,
I can tell you there's two in the offices.
Okay.
so that would be something we could take from
I
COVID
know
to
about
put back
this.
into our payroll
Right, yes.
to,
Mhm.
okay.
At the end of the day, it's anything COVID related. Anything she's categorized as COVID related, there's a really good chance of it being reimbursed to the CARES Act.
Mhm.
That's why it was so pertinent for every municipality to keep strict records on anything related to COVID, because there was, the money was coming,
Mhm.
so that's why they were directed to do so.
Yeah.
Jody, I'm just doing simple math here right now. So between the 38.94 and 13, we're looking at 145 off the 228 we initially. I'm talking dollars.
What were the amounts you just said?
38.94 and 13.
38 plus the 94.5 plus the 13. Be about 145,000 that would come off, yeah.
Off of, and what was the initial?
So it'll be about 7.5 cents that'll come off. So we'll be down to about 5.5 cents.
5.5 cents, which equals out to about 98,000.
So I think we'll definitely be able to cover that with the COVID money. Once we have that.
Are you saying all 98,000? Yeah.
Because think about court revenue alone is probably 40,000. We got 40 from that. We've got between the lake, other licenses and municipal rent, that's about 30,000. So right there, we've kind of got 90 before we even worry about anything else,
That
you know.
possible utility.
Right, plus the utility. I mean, I think we'll definitely, hopefully we could maybe take out some of those more one-shot things, save those for the rainy day, put the COVID in, because that's kind of a use it or lose it over 2 years. So whatever we could use of that, and then we could save those other things, for,
Right, we can take some of that utility fund and keep that stashed and use COVID money. That would be
right,
beneficial.
exactly. So I think once we get our final numbers, like I said, we can take some of these out if we have to, if we're able to, I should say, really, and save those one-shot things, for the future, for, a rainy day, or, to offset something in the future. Or if we want to do a special project in the future, it could offset that, so you don't have an increase when you want to do something special. So.
Hey, Mayor, I have a question for you about the lake. Did we take a tally? Well, I'm bouncing off what Joe and Jody were saying of how we were affected with COVID and the shutdowns and the minimal hours that we had. Did we have
It was a $12,000 increase in salaries to do the cleaning and maintenance. And it was probably what, 10,000 or 12,000 loss in revenue. And that's it really. And then all the expenses due to COVID that we had to purchase, like a fogger, we had to purchase plexiglass things, and things like that, and sanitizer.
No, I was just saying, because that's a big chunk of our budget too, what we lost from the lake with the COVID. That's why I was just wondering how much we actually lost.
The year before last, we brought in $95,000 worth of revenue.
Yep.
But we only budgeted for 80, what, Jody?
Yeah, I think it was 15,000 or something like that we made over the budget.
Only because the year before, it was such a good year with weather that we didn't want to anticipate too much revenue if it was going to be a rainy season. That's what the really catch is with the lake. If it rains, you got to close. So we did lose more money, not as much as expected, but we did lose a lot of money due to COVID. Because if you remember, we had we had to limit our hours. We
Yeah,
were-
no, I do remember. I was just saying, that tally, like I said, because, for reimbursement for that as well. That's what I was just wondering.
Well, we did get reimbursed through the CARES Act for a lot of the expenses. I think we got $76,000 citywide for the expenses.
Awesome.
But
No, that's really good. I'm glad.
going forward, yeah, we can't really cover the revenue unless we get that funding from the state. So once we get the funding from the state, we can cover that revenue. And then also anticipate, and cover next year's revenue too, according to Jody.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So would it be safe to say, Jody, and it's a hypothetical number, not putting any hard numbers to anything right now, about $27,000 lost at the league, everything involved?
The revenue was down about 12,000 last year. And then, like Lisa said, we had about 12,000 in crossing guard salaries alone before the supplies. We did get reimbursed for the crossing guards and the supplies though through the last round of the CARES Act money that we got.
Okay.
The revenue, we didn't get to make up anyway, but we did get at least covered for the expenses that we
So
had
it's more like
last year.
12,000. like,
Yes, and actually, like I was saying before, we'll probably almost in a way be able to double that because we lost 12,000 in 2020, but we technically can't budget that extra 12,000 in 2021, so we can make up for that 2021 money as well. So it really should be able to use about 24,000 of COVID money. So that's why I think hopefully once we kind of find out exactly what the rules are, if it turns out that way, I do think we'll be in a much better spot.
I mean, this is all good news. I mean, we were at what, 12.8,
Mm-hmm.
and we're down to a 5.2, 5.3, 98,000. Now, another just question, and the way you see into the future, speaking to the courts in Hamilton, any projected numbers for March or April or no?
They didn't have it yet, but I can tell you what the last 2 months were, so that way, just to have an idea. And just to kind of give you context of how bad it was last year. So April's total was about $440 in fines, and January was about 4,100, and February was about 7,000. So this past February. So we're really finally starting to pick back up again. So if we maintain about the 6,000 a month, we'll be good for next year. We hopefully won't have to make up any money to Hamilton, if it continues the way it is. So hopefully we'll be back on track. And that'll be a nice savings for next year too, because right now we're having to put like $30,000 in the budget because of that. So that would be nice to not have to, if we don't have to make that up next year.
Then there's also the possibility of countywide system.
Which will help too, because, we're like putting in this COVID money that, potentially will be there one more year, but after that, you don't want to create a hole based on that as well.
Yeah.
So, just having things that we know will just naturally reduce themselves is kind of nice.
So is it from the date of disbursement for the money for 2 years, or when is the 2-year anniversary or sunset to use the money?
No, but the guidance hasn't come out yet. So like I said, hopefully there'll be a local finance notice from the state either tomorrow or early next week. So as soon as I have more information, I can share that with everybody.
Yeah, if
Once
you
we
could send it
know.
around, that would be great.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know if the law itself has like a certain date, like in the past, like everything was kind of like December 31st and things got extended. So I'm not 100% sure. And then unless anybody else has any other questions about that, I just had one other thing that I just kind of wanted to mention. I had talked to Keith, I don't know, I'm sorry, I can't remember who's chair, Public Works. Okay, have you talked to Keith at all? He wants to get either maybe like a shed or some kind of building at Public Works, because there's gonna be so much stuff that we're like need to move after everything with New Jersey American, that they just don't have enough room to put all the equipment and things like that. So he was looking into maybe getting some type of shed or a pole. He actually talked to Keith, and Keith Molina was like, why don't you maybe get a pole barn? It'd be a lot bigger and it's a lot cheaper, and you can get like electric, everything that he would need. So right now in the budget, in the capital section, we have money called capital improvement fund. I was just thinking maybe we want to just put that in, that 25, instead of putting it in for capital improvement fund, put it in for the shed. Because really, we're kind of thinking of using, obviously, when everything closes out with the utility, purchasing it kind of through that, but that's not going to happen for so long. And he wants to be proactive and like get the shed so it's, there, and when everything is able to move. So if it's okay, I'm just going to make that a line item in the budget. It's not going to change any numbers. Instead of the capital money putting into the capital fund and buying the shed, we'll just buy it right out of the budget with that.
Has he gotten any prices?
He was gonna look into getting some.
Jody, I just want to mention too, remember we got with the Pinelands, when we put that salt shed up.
That's
we
what I
got
asked
in
you,
a lot
what
of
is it?
trouble with that, so
Okay.
we may want to check with Pinelands.
Okay, okay,
Just to see what we're allowed to put
okay,
size wise.
okay. I'll mention that to him.
Remember, I don't know if you remember when
Oh,
the
it was
salt
before I
shed,
was
when Tom
here.
Henshaw was here and they built the salt shed,
Okay,
the Pinelands, we were in court with them.
Oh,
for
really?
quite a while.
okay,
I got in big trouble for the shit up in the city.
okay,
So, I mean,
okay.
Where's he gonna put it?
I guess somewhere on the
Right in that
yard
lot right
area?
there,
I'm
right
not
next to it?
100% sure. But I
So a
believe
lot of
somewhere.
times they'll let you put up portable, but not permanent.
like, I think he does have a container out there, that's probably why we were allowed to put that. But with the salt shed, I think it was more like a lean-to, wasn't it, out there? Were you
It was
here then?
before I was here.
Oh, okay.
It was like a year or two before I,
Is this to store things that are in the,
like in the water treatment
water
plant
treatment
now,
plant?
yeah.
So you want to okay for that?
All right, now I just,
Well,
we'll just leave it as
we
capital
gotta get
improvement fund and
prices.
move it there and do a capital ordinance at
I
some
think
point.
you first, well, not first, you put the money, but check with the zoning officer. and
Okay.
check
Yeah,
with
make sure you find
Our
out.
planner,
Okay.
our city planner, or.
Yes, on the contingency that finance says we can.
Yeah,
All right, so maybe we'll just leave it as capital improvement fund. We could always move it there and
I
just
mean,
do
we
a
can always do
capital
it, get in
ordinance.
trouble later.
No, I'm not saying to go ahead and buy it. I'm saying, I'm thinking, I don't want to, if we do that, I don't want to make a problem for that adoption, because revenues are very easy to change. And even though if you already have a public hearing set, you don't have to redo anything, but if you change appropriations a certain way, like if I were to change that completely, we'd have to have a whole nother public hearing just for that. So if we leave it as capital improvement fund, it's more general, and we can just,
tell them to go through zoning.
so
go
let's
through all
just
that,
leave
make sure
it,
it's
we'll
all
just
right,
leave
and
it
then
then,
go
and we
someplace.
can always do an ordinance if we need to, using the capital improvement fund. Okay,
Yeah.
all right, scratch that idea.
All you need to know is the money's there.
Yeah. But we could use it for that in a different manner. I'll just come up with a little bit longer process to do that.
Alright, so anything else? Did you dive into the?
I didn't really come across anything else at this point that I thought we could change besides those items. Unless anyone has any other thoughts, suggestions, I'm open to suggestions.
Anybody on council have any suggestions, ideas, moving forward? We're going to close out in about 10 minutes so we can take a break before regular council meeting.
I have nothing, Joe.
All right.
I have nothing at this time either.
Thank you. I'll just, yeah,
Make a motion to close?
I'm gonna go around. Just give me 1 minute.
Okay. Okay.
Give me
Sound
one
like
second.
Timbers
Is
was.
Timbers, are you here?
Yes, he did join.
Yes.
I should have mentioned that, too, I'm sorry.
All right, I'll just go through council real quick. I mean, if you have something to speak, if not, just pass, and then we'll motion to adjourn. Councilwoman Heist,
I'm good.
Councilwoman Sefton,
I'm fine.
Councilwoman Brown,
I'm okay.
Councilman Dash,
I'm good for now.
Councilman Triangle,
I'm good for now, thank you.
Councilman Timbers,
I'm good.
Councilman Wright,
Nothing yet.
Councilwoman Clark.
I'm good. Thank you.
Mayor, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
All right, I guess moving forward, Jody, do you want us to vote in favor of making these amended changes for adoption, or?
Well, I think we have to do that.
Yeah, let's do it at the regular session. We
Okay.
can do the introduction, and we'll just I'll put those changes in that we discussed.
Okay, if nobody has anything more to say, if we can have a motion to adjourn for the next 24 or 23 minutes to the regular council.
Second.
So move second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
See you all in about 23 minutes. Team, you got to.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Sorry. I've been looking at that.
I did change it.
When I looked at them, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Egg Harbor City Council meeting, March 25th, 2021. Remote and limited in person. Can I have a roll call, please?
Here.
Brown,
Here. Here.
here.
Price. Here. Sefton,
Here.
Python,
Here.
White,
Here.
Timbers,
Here.
Christie.
Here. All right, approved minutes from March 11th, 2021. Before we go to a motion, there was a note made that there was an error that had been corrected on a vote on one of the resolutions. If I can have a motion to accept the minutes,
Make that motion.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody in the public have any comment on any of the agenda items? All right, I'd like to move on to the mayor's report.
Mark Emmer's not going to be here tonight, as far as I know, unless he's on right now and I just don't see him, but I'm going to read the police department report. Crimes and offenses: 1 burglary, 1 fraud, 1 narcotics activity, 1 stolen motor vehicle, for a total of theft is 3, for a total of 7. Traffic related: 7 vehicle assists, 3 pedestrian stop checks, 195 traffic stops, for a total of 205. Summonses issued: traffic stops were 61, for a total of 61. Arrests: we have actually 1 DUI, and total arrests including the DUI is 12. So we had 11 arrests and 1 DUI. Other incidents: 8 alarm businesses. Alarm residential is 3. Crime prevention activities was 164. Criminal mischief 2. 5. EMS incident 9. Firearm applications 5. 6. Whoever, can you guys mute, please? I can hear the 2 people on the phone. Can you mute, please? Because we can hear you. Property checks 226. Public service 7. And that's the police report. As for my report, I have the cleanup scheduled for the same way it was last year. It's via Google email. The groups and families and individuals have from April 1st to May 1st to perform a cleanup. The groups will get 14 groups will be entered into all the groups will be entered into a cash drawing, and also will the residents or families. So there's certain criteria. It is on the website. It's on the Facebook page, and it's also on Instagram if you need more information about that. And it was also circulated to council. We did get the recycling tonnage grant, although as far as I could see on the report, and Jody, maybe you can correct me, the amount was as of 2018, and I think it was somewhere around $5,000. Is that correct, Jody?
There's a 2-year delay, so it's called the fiscal year 18 grant based on 18 data. It was, I
Great.
believe, 10,445. It's actually more. You know how there, I don't know if anyone knows, but there's like a $3 per ton recycling tax that we pay. We were one of the few municipalities in the county that actually got a little bit more than we paid in that year.
So that money can be used for anything recycling, like recycling containers, recycling bags, whatever, and we do use that throughout the year in different departments. We also talked about the state aid that should be coming down our way in the amount of $398,036.92. And we discussed that in our previous budget meeting, so I won't go into that in great detail. We are partnering with Pleasantville to get residents who are at high risk shots, and that's going really well. I had a representative go door to door in Egg Harbor City, and she managed to get many names for the event. And Scott, maybe you can talk a little bit more about that since you're heavily involved in that.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, just a little update. The city of Pleasantville has been chosen to be a pop-up vaccination site by FEMA and the New Jersey Department of Health. FEMA is going to provide 3,600 vaccinations over a 2-week period for the initial and 2-week period for the second. They are providing the Moderna vaccination. So basically, what's happening is right now, during the phase that we're going through right now, is the names are being collected and phone numbers and contact is made for residents of both towns, both Egg Harbor City and also Pleasantville. The shots are going to be conducted at the Epiphany Lutheran Church, which is on Franklin Boulevard. Right now, the vaccinations are by appointment. So it's very important that any of our Egg Harbor City residents that want the vaccination need to contact Mayor Giampetti and City Hall to provide their name and also their phone number. What I'll do for the phone call here is I will post the link, the email that you can also email your name and your phone number to. And I'll say it right now so anybody that's listening can pass it on. I know Mayor Giampetti was given the flyers, both English and in Spanish, that provide some information about the COVID vaccination sites going on. So just real quick recap, they are starting on Monday, March 29th for the first week, and then April, I think it's 5th, for the second week, and then a couple weeks in between for the second vaccination. So if anybody's listening and that wants to write the information down, the email is COVID, COVID, vax, VAX, at PleasantvilleFD.net. I'll also put that in the chat. So anything else. So like I said, if also the Chief Reagan also asked me to tell you that, Egg Harbor City residents, get into Pleasantville. As long as you get into Pleasantville, we can take you to the sites in Pleasantville. So that's not a big deal, but you had to get to the city of Pleasantville first. So that's all I have, Mayor. Any questions?
Thank you, Scott.
You're
The
welcome.
information should be on Facebook and also Instagram. I was approved to send that out yesterday. So hopefully it did get out. And there already are a list of names that I submitted to Chief Reagan, and he's going to, hopefully they'll be scheduled. And there's also a group that is providing transportation via Uber. So they have a pretty hefty donation for about $10,000 plus, so we can get our residents there. So that's a great thing. And I was very happy that Mayor Ward from Pleasantville did reach out to me for that, to get involved in that event. So that's a good thing for us.
Mayor, if I highlight real quick, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We're not providing, the city of Pleasantville is not providing transportation from Egg Harbor City. You had to get into Pleasantville, then we can take you to the sites.
Okay, well, Chief said in the meeting that I went to that they were going to Uber people. So hopefully that hasn't changed, because that'll severely affect our residents because we need transportation.
Okay.
That's what he said. So I can reach out to him tomorrow and find out. So on another note, the coalition is also working with Atlanticare to provide a site location for shots in Egg Harbor City. We're working with the Rittenberg Manor because apparently only about 20% of their population has been vaccinated. They will be the ones vaccinated first. We do have on-site volunteers that are going to go there, and then the community can also go, but it will have to be after the Rittenberg residents go there. So that will be a good thing coming to Egg Harbor City too. Aaron Hoffman has had their meeting, which Carl reported on last meeting. And since then, the updated report is I reached out to the county, which council got a copy of my letter that I wrote to Denny Levinson. And Denny called me 2 days ago and he said that he will look into it and most likely we will have to pay a sum for that service, but it may not be very much because we don't have a brush hog. I'd ask the county to come and do the brush hogging for us so we can grate that road between to get to Landing Creek where the people fish. So that's in the works. And also the residents of that road, they are having issues with thorns and thistles growing out of the road and scratching their cars. That's part of the project that we're going to look into with the county to try to get that done. So that hasn't been done since Mayor McGeary was mayor. So it's about time that we do it. And then I guess lastly, what I have is the Bruce Homan, who used to cut the Key Rec field at Buffalo Avenue and Deer Street and Chicago Avenue, has resigned after many years of service. The city did pay him to do that grass cutting. And I spoke to Jody earlier and I was hoping that we could reach out to the business that does the grass cutting at the cemetery or possibly other ones that we can try to get a price to do that. Gary Hess has generously offered to weed eat Nedge, which he does regularly now. So it would basically be only a service for cutting the grass. Currently, we paid Bruce Homan $5,000 to do that a year. And believe me, it was well worth the money because he did a great job. And it takes a lot of hours to do that. So I would ask that Jody look into that for us. And that's all I have unless there's any questions.
Mayor, it was Jody says 4,000 a year we pay him.
Okay, 4,000. That's even cheaper. We were getting a bargain. Let's put it that way.
We can check with the cemetery caretaker and get a cost.
Okay,
price
thank
for
you.
that.
Yeah, then I would have to get a phone number so I can make sure that grass gets cut.
Right.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Committee chair reports. I'll start with finance rate development. We did have a meeting scheduled on the 18th with the developer for the St. Nick's property. I had to get canceled. I guess in the works of being rescheduled, correct, Brian?
Yeah, we're just waiting to hear back from them.
All right. Other than that, I have nothing on finance rate development. Councilman Triethel, safety.
I have nothing at this time.
Councilwoman Heiss, highway and property parks and playground.
No, nothing at this time.
Councilman Dash, code.
No, nothing at this time.
Councilman Wright, utility. Councilman Triethel, license ordinances.
Nothing at this time.
Councilman Timbers, land use.
Hi, good evening. At the meeting, Ryan McGowan, he gave a presentation. It was a continuation for the previous meeting in which he compared Oxford homes versus the Class F sober living facilities, sorry. And from that, he compared the two models. He also told us about possible legislation that the DCA says that can be patterned after a decision in Woodbury. And so it seems like that it is possible that we could regulate not the Oxford homes, but the Class F sober living facilities. And so there would be a possible recommendation coming from the board in the future as to legislation for the council to consider. Also, they looked at possibilities of site plans not being adhered to. There's certain establishments, they may not have been keeping their trash up and it's in the way that they indicated in their site plan to the board when it was approved. So that came up, and possibly they're going to reach out to them and just make sure that they do adhere to their site plans. And that was pretty much everything that happened at the meeting.
Great. Since I have you, anything for Aaron Hafen?
There was no Aaron Hafen meeting that I was aware of.
Okay.
I reached out to Mr. Walker so that he could contact me whenever they do have a meeting. So I'm pretty confident there wasn't a meeting.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Brown, school board?
No, I have nothing.
Thank you. Meg, anything with Jeff?
We did have a safety meeting, our regular quarterly meeting. Just regular things going over, a lot updated with COVID and how that just they were advising us to stay in touch with our labor attorney and our city attorney on rules that are going to be coming up. Was it? I'm thinking, was it about COVID? They were trying to.
It was about the police thing. It was it Daniel's Law or was it something else?
Yeah, everything. What they were just saying, we need to stay close with them with all the new rules with COVID and Daniel's Law, which Daniel's Law is with the judge whose son was recently killed, and because we have had some requests for property records and how we are to distribute that information. But Daniel's Law has been on hold, so it's been kind of a touchy situation. Angela has been involved in it, but their advice was to stay close with your city attorney on that. But labor attorney, I want to say, it was more about the COVID and incidents when people are exposed and staying consistent with how we respond to things. So that's basically it was a lot about the COVID rules, new rules.
Ongoing rules.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No.
All right, thank you. Moving on, Director of Public Safety was given by the mayor. CFO report?
Nothing additional. Actually, sorry, I'm sorry, I do have one thing. Nanette had asked me, I don't know if she's on here, I don't know, Nanette, if you wanted to talk about it, but they wanted, Sustainable EHC wanted to do something for Arbor Day. So she was asking about suggestions for somewhere to plant. So I was talking to Keith and he suggested there's kind of like that patch of grass over on the front of the building. It's kind of like behind where Donna's office would be. So we were thinking about maybe planting a tree there, but I just thought maybe we should get council's approval to plant there before we rip up something in the middle of a patch of grass.
Anybody
So-
object to a tree? Does she specify what name?
I'm trying to remember what we were talking. We didn't pick anything specific yet.
Say something where the roots grow down and not out.
I'm sure we can entrust them that into planting the proper tree. Does anybody object to that? All right, she has to go to do that.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
All right, city clerk report.
I just want to remind everyone that the rabies clinic is this Saturday at the Public Works Garage from 10 to 12. We are going to handle a little differently this year due to the COVID. Everybody's going to stay in their cars. We have a whole system, and I think it's going to be really good, work out well how we have it set up. And again, it is this Saturday from 10 to 12. And I do want to touch on one thing. I know we're talking about vaccines and everything, but there's a few members of the staff here who don't fall into any of the categories of high risk. Their age they're not 65 or older, and we have been open through this whole pandemic. And on their behalf, I'm speaking out. If anybody has any idea of how we could get these people vaccinated, because we are going to start selling beach passes here. We're going to have a lot of activity in and out of the building. And there are a few people here who aren't vaccinated and aren't eligible to be vaccinated, but their job is not on that list to to make them a priority.
They went on the website and created a username and
Yeah,
password and got on the
yeah.
list.
They have.
Councilman Traffo, you on still?
I just think that our employees here too, like we've been open, we're on the, I mean, I'm not front line, but we.
Yes, I am.
Never closed. I'm talking, we have probably 3 employees that would like to be vaccinated, not before now, like I said, we start selling the beach passes April 1st.
Do you
Meg.
have,
Meg, on the chat line, and I'm also going to post a flyer. Tell the people to put their to submit their names and telephone numbers, and somebody will get in contact with them. Okay.
Yeah, okay, it's not many, I want to say 3, 4.
There's also, Meg, if you call the local drugstores that are giving them, you can get
We
them.
have, they don't fit the age requirement.
But if they have
I
vaccine
know,
left,
we have,
they will,
yeah.
they will call if there's vaccine
I
left,
know,
anybody
I know.
who's, you know.
We've been actively doing, I'm just saying, like I hear a lot of people are getting vaccinated who, I see it in my own life, like outside of work, that are getting vaccinated who aren't doing what City Hall is doing. So
Meg, also, the vaccine sites we're doing is 18 years and up. Okay, so just letting you know, there's,
these people have been trying, I witnessed it, so I'm just saying, if anybody knows of anything, they could let us know where they could. I feel like the employees here, we are kind of, like I said, no job, we might not be in, the utility, but I feel like we are in utility because we have utility. So, like, if you're in the building department, you should be able to mark off your own utility. However, I think the building department should be on there because they do have people visiting their office every day, but it's not on that checklist to be a priority.
so,
One thing I could say is you are technically emergency management, even though you may not be a deputy, but you guys contribute to emergency management when we have to be activated. So I think that we can provide a letter for those individuals who want to go to get vaccinated. And I don't think that there's a problem with that because we have such a small emergency management staff. So you would all qualify, I think, for that. So if you want to go that route, I can talk to Bob Oddie.
Any help would help. If there's any, I want to say there's 3 or 4 of us that need to be vaccinated, and we would like to as soon as possible, especially with, like I said, the passes are running out April 1st. I know it's kind of close to now, and we can't get both shots by then, but we're going to be having a lot of people in and out of this building that we have no idea, where they've been, or so. If anybody has any suggestions, not right now, but could let us know.
I just sent a message
Appreciate it.
for a request.
Thank you.
take over. All right, Angela, city attorney report.
Thank you, Mr. Ritchie.
You're welcome.
The mayor asked me to look into a bicycle ordinance. So I did some research into a bicycle ordinance. And we do have the possibility, and I think we can pass one if you are all interested in formulating one. And the one that I've seen basically prohibit the use of bicycles on sidewalks in a business district, but they don't prohibit them in all business districts. And that would be something that either Ryan or Mr. Emmer could tell us the necessity for, which business districts you want to prohibit them, whether it's the Pike or Philadelphia Avenue or a portion of those. We can do that. We could also regulate the age, and we could regulate safety precautions, having lights on the bicycles, having noise makers on the bicycles, prohibiting different maneuvers on bicycles, wheelies, and all that kind of stuff that we all used to do on the sidewalks. And we could put some kind of fine on it. I'd recommend kind of a small fine, $25, maybe $35, or maybe up to $50, if you're so interested in doing that. But it is a possibility that we can, if council is interested, along with the mayor, of having me prepare some kind of ordinance.
It does need to be addressed. Obviously, we've been having situations arise with several residents. What I would do is, Councilman Chaco, I would like for you to speak to Angela on this and set up an ordinance meeting, if you could, with the committee to revise it so we can move forward in an expedient way.
And
No
Glenn,
problem.
I have a question. With that ordinance, can you do like certain times? Because I know with us being a walking community to school and them the kids go back to school, our crossing guard is on the corner of Philadelphia Avenue and the Whitehurst Pike. So the kids come down to Dunkin' Donuts from the apartments. They walk their bikes across, they ride down the sidewalk from Philadelphia Avenue to get to school. If we change that, then our kids are going to be crossing the pike where there's not a crossing guard. And then we're going to have the issue of the danger of the kids crossing the pike with no crossing guard. So is there a way to say the bikes are not allowed on the sidewalk after a certain time during the day? You know,
We can.
I know that's kind of like tricky, but
It is tricky because the issue is not whether we can do it or not. We certainly can do it, but the issue is whether we can enforce it.
right.
So that means extra police out there to enforce it, someone giving out tickets if there's someone out there, putting an age restriction on it as well. I mean, you know, we have small children riding bikes on sidewalks, and we have other people, we have adults riding bikes on sidewalks. So we might want to put an age restriction on there too. So we can certainly do it. We'd have to talk to Mr. Emmer about how to enforce it.
Well, I have a comment on that. There are not many kids that ride their bikes to school. So I can certainly ask Eladia because that's the crossing guard that's at that corner. However, they could still cross at that corner and then cross over to the other side and then turn down Argo Street and go down the alleyway or whatever. They don't have to continue on Philadelphia Avenue to the 600 block and then make a right and then go to school or the whatever. So there are ways around that.
I mean, my concern is just if they're crossing the pike with a bike, whether it's we have 4 kids doing it or we have 40 kids doing it, I still don't want to take the risk of a kid.
Well, the thing is that the school establishes a safe routes to school plan, and the children are required to cross at the crossing guard spot. So that wouldn't really affect the safety of the children. So once they cross the White Horse Pike, basically all they have to do is cross Philadelphia Avenue to the other side, possibly walk their bikes to Argo Street and then continue driving to school. So I don't really think that's a big issue. Like I said, I can check with Eladia Rivera, who actually is the crossing guard there, and get more information on that if you'd like.
We do that, or Mr. Triphol, if we want to schedule some kind of Zoom meeting or a live meeting, we can hash out some of the details if you're interested in the ordinance.
Yes, I am. I will contact you tomorrow.
That's great. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Ritchie.
That's everything?
That's it.
Great. Brian, you're up to the engineer's report.
Okay, I'll try to make a quick update. Utility sale, the agreement is ready to be signed, so I have copies here. We'll leave them at City Hall. For Chicago Avenue, we're just waiting for a response from DOT. Hopefully we get any positive news there. We can get that scheduled and get moving forward with the resurfacing and the 300 and 400 blocks. The solar project, we haven't gotten our revised proposal yet. I was expecting to get that this week and hope we could get some kind of update today, but I don't have that. So I did reach out to them. Hopefully we get something in a couple of days. For anyone who hasn't seen yet, at Raymond Avenue, the new curb is installed at that intersection, so you can see what the alignment is supposed to look like and what it will look like going forward. But we should start thinking about the next phase, which is redoing Raymond Avenue and resetting the curb line for the rest of the street. So we have some more in-depth conversations about that going forward. There is no additional sidewalk proposed there. There's only ADA ramps. I reached out earlier today asking that question. So they're not putting an additional sidewalk for the bus stop or anything. The owner of the building at the corner there, well, it takes up the whole block really. If at any point in time they get to the point where they have 4 tenants occupying the building, they are required to install sidewalks there. So that requirement still exists. They just haven't gotten to that 4 tenant threshold yet. So that's why I still don't see any sidewalks there. For the community sign in Philadelphia Avenue Route 30, we did get a response, a very carefully worded response from the Fine Line Commission that confirmed what we needed them to confirm without doing it officially, so they didn't have to charge us $250. I forwarded that on to DOT, and we're just waiting for a response from them. Hopefully, we can finally get moving forward with that. And then Mr. Timbers gave an update on the CSL facility, as did Ms. Costigan. we sent a memorandum to the board, we reviewed everything, and Mr. Manos sent an email to the city advising that the board did adopt a resolution recommending that the city draft an ordinance. There's some draft language for that, so I'm sure we'll get it out for the next meeting, I suppose.
When is that next meeting?
I think it's April 20th. I checked with Mr. Manos, he said it's April 20th, but I asked him to review it before our next meeting, so perhaps we could introduce it at our next meeting. Because Mr. Manos, who is the land use board attorney, he wanted the land use board to take another look at the ordinance before it was introduced to council.
It was introduced. Okay.
That's what he said.
All right, I'll have to reach out to him.
But like I said, I recommended to him that he take a look at it, so we could at least introduce it. And he said he would take a look at it as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's my understanding was we would draft it and introduce and then seek the board's comment before we adopt it. But
Okay, but it's drafted, it's done.
Yeah, no, I did. I that's what I'm saying. I saw that, so I was sort of surprised. I didn't realize you were going to go that route. All right.
On that note, on behalf of the residents of this town, can we make sure that gets expedited in one way or another?
Yeah, I mean, we can hold a special meeting to look at it. You know, it's doesn't really deviate from the recommendations of the memorandum, so it shouldn't be, you know, it sort of matches up with what they recommended ultimately. So,
Well, the only reason I'm asking is so we can introduce it on the 8th.
yeah, no, absolutely. I'll reach out to Donna and see if we can't get a special meeting scheduled for the week of the 5th in advance of your meeting on the 8th.
Thanks.
Mhm.
I did talk to Ryan from our conversation with the budget meeting about the recommendation of a shed by
Oh.
Keith and, or a pole barn, so I did run back, so maybe if you want him to speak on it, he did have some.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so generally speaking, unless you're disturbing 5,000 square feet of soil, you don't have to apply. However, you've had extensive development at that site over time, and it's used pretty heavily. So if we're gonna propose any permanent structure at that location, at the public works facility, I would recommend that we figure out the scope of what we intend to do and then submit it to the commission, just to get them to sign off one way or the other to say, you know, no, this is, it requires a permit because it's development beyond what was approved previously. Or, yeah, go ahead, you don't need a permit, because they're a fickle group sometimes. Sometimes you think you feel good about something, you submit it and they blast it apart. Other times you don't feel good about it, you send it in and they have no problem. You're always better to check than ask for forgiveness.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, anything else?
No, not unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions for Ryan from anyone? If not, we'll move on to 14, an introduction of ordinance number 4. Go ahead, somebody have a question? Introduction of ordinance number 4-2021, calendar year 2021. To exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and establish a cap bank. This was sent around to everyone to review. If there's any questions or comments or concerns, I'm sure Jody, you can address them real quick, or if you just.
Yeah, if you want me to just give a brief explanation?
Yeah.
On the appropriation side, you are, the state comes out with a percentage every year that you can increase the appropriations by, and it was, I believe, 1%. You can do an ordinance to allow an increase up to 3.5%. And if you don't use it, it just creates a bank. So we just do the ordinance every year as a precaution. We haven't really needed to use it. We're usually way under the maximum amount, but it just allows us to have a bank in case in the future we need it.
Thank you. Anybody, any questions? If not, can I have a motion to introduce?
I'll second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, may I have a motion to advertise the notice of introduction of ordinance number 4-2021 in the Hamilton Gazette on March 31st, 2021 for a public hearing on April 8th, 2021.
So move Brown.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, resolution for uncollected taxes. This is the city for the 2021 municipal budget has opted to utilize a 3-year collection for the average calculation in order to determine the required reserve for uncollected taxes appropriation 3-year collection rate average is 97.51. Is there anything you'd like to add with that, Jody?
No, it just allows us to use a 3-year average instead of last year's. It's a slightly higher amount. It kind of, last year's collection rate was 97.4. I believe in 19, it was 97.35, and in 98, I think it was a little bit higher. That's why it actually bumped up a little bit using the average.
All right, any questions on that?
No, but I would like to add that these foreclosures that we're doing is going to reduce that amount, which will save the taxpayers money, because we do have to budget a quite substantial amount for uncollected taxes. It's 10%. So as we continue to foreclose on the people that are not paying their taxes and take over those properties, that'll save the taxpayers money.
All right, thank you, Mayor. If there's no more questions or comments, common motion. I'll make a motion. Second, please. Second. Roll call.
Brown,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dash,
Yes.
Heist,
Yes.
Sefton. Sefton. Tricol,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Timbers,
Yes.
Ritchie.
Yes. All right, number 16, resolution. Introduce. This is to introduce, not approve of or accept. Introduce the 2021 Egg Harbor City Municipal Budget by title only. We discussed this in our budget meeting. For those that are in attendance, I will ask Jody for all the details we discussed.
So from the initial draft that we discussed at the last meeting, we made a couple of changes. We added in land sale of $38,000, a reserve for land sales, which is money from previous years, out in Egg Harbor North, a development fee. That's $94,500, and we lowered the court by $13,000 based on some additional receipts that we've had this year so far. So that brought it down to a 5.3 tax increase right now. Once, again, this is just for introduction. At our budget meeting, we discussed that we will have more information about the COVID funding that's coming out, and hopefully that will help alleviate basically the remainder of the tax increase, and hopefully we can bring it down a substantial amount again for adoption.
All right, thank you, Jody. Is there anybody have any questions or comments on that?
And just to clarify for everyone that may not understand, we were at a 12.5% initially, and we're bringing it down to the 5.3%. And we're
Cent, not percent, 5.3 cents.
Oh, cent, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
It's down to 5.3 cents.
Yeah.
And we're continuing to work on that number as well.
Anybody else, any comments? If there's no more comments, may I have a motion to introduce the 2021 Egg Harbor City Municipal Budget by title only? I'll make a motion.
So moved, Brown.
All right, roll call, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dash,
Yes.
Heist,
Yes.
Sefton. Tricol,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Timbers,
Yes.
Ritchie.
Yes. Now may I have a motion to advertise in the Hamilton Gazette on March 31st, 2021 for a public hearing on April 22nd, 2021?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Resolution utility credit for 348 Cabana. The leak was repaired on February 27th of 21. A water pipe broke on the property located at said address. The leak was approximately 11,000 gallons of water determined by our utility superintendent. A sewer credit will be issued in the amount of $85.25, which represents the 11,000 gallons of water at $7.50 per 1,000 gallons as per city ordinance. Any questions or comments? Can I have a motion? I'll make a motion. Second,
I'll second.
roll call, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dash,
Yes.
Heist,
Yes.
Sefton. Tricol,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Timbers,
Yes.
Richie,
Yes. 18 resolution appropriation reserve of reserve transfers, I'm sorry. The following appropriation reserve transfers are made. Jody, you want to add to this or?
Yeah, it was just moving around a little bit of money from, we have until the end of March to to move money from the prior year's budget. So, Public Works was looking to one of the plows completely fell apart, disintegrated, not sure the right terminology, but basically it is unusable. So looking to replace that, and I think one other plow that is in very bad shape. So just moving aside some leftover money from last year so they can move forward with purchasing the plows.
Thank you. Any questions on that? If not, have a motion. Second, please.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Graham,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dash,
Yes.
Heist,
Yes.
Sefton, Trikoff,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Timbers,
Yes.
Richie.
Yes.
Can I comment on the Public Works budget, please?
Yes.
This is a really good thing that we're doing because in years past, probably most of the council people, except for Mason Wright, who are on council now, don't know that we had a mandatory 10% decrease in each department's budget. So we have been reduced quite substantially, and they have not been able to supply the things that they need to do their jobs. So any money that's left over or transferred should really be invested in the Public Works budget because they are a very important part of Egg Harbor City. And they can't afford to cut any more money off their budget.
Is that everything, Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving on to resolution, or number 19 resolution, amending the salary resolution of 2021 plumbing, electrical, and fire subcode official. This was brought to attention by Jody. Apparently, we hired this individual back in 2014. He's gone 7 years without a raise. He's currently sits at 14,000 annual. Is that what it was?
15, and it'll go to
15,000
16.
annual salary. The finance committee, along with Jody, has decided to give him a raise to 16,500. Are there any questions or comments about this? If not, he's still part-time, right? He's not.
Right, yeah.
Yes. No other comments or questions? May I have a motion?
So moved, Brown.
Second, Clark.
Roll call.
Brown,
Yes.
Clark. She's muted. Clark,
She's not.
She's shaking her head.
okay. Dash,
Yes.
Heist,
Yes.
Sefton, Trikoff,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Timbers,
Yes.
Richie.
Yes. Number 20 resolution. This is from Nanette Galloway, Sustainable Egg Harbor City Support 2021 EDF Climate Course Program application. One of the purposes of the Sustainable New Jersey program is to provide resources to municipalities to make progress on sustainability issues. Egg Harbor City should apply for the aforementioned 2021 EDF Climate Course Program. The assistance will help with several Sustainable Jersey energy actions, including outreach, carbon footprint, energy tracking, and heat island assessment. Any questions or comments about this? Who, Meg, did you forward this or was it you two?
Nanette had sent it to the mayor and the mayor sent it to me to see if you were in agreement, and you said you were. So Nanette's on the line, so maybe she would like.
May I speak?
Yes, you may.
This would just provide us with a graduate student from the Sustainable Jersey movement that would help us create reports such as a carbon footprint, energy tracking for as part of what the municipality uses as far as energy, and probably do a heat island assessment that would target hot spots in the city so that we can take actions to correct that. And it would also help us do outreach to commercial and residential property owners.
Thank you, Nanette. Just
No cost to the city.
just for my own knowledge, what is a heat island? What is that referencing?
Heat island assessment would be to use GPS modeling to identify hotspots in the city. I could tell you in advance that it would probably target streets where we've lost trees, things like that. And then we could address it later on after it's identified in a document. We could apply for grants to correct those issues.
Okay. Did you have something?
Well, yeah, generally the heat island effect is areas where there's not a lot of shade. You get solar radiation sort of builds up, surrounded by buildings where the heat just generates on pavement most of the time and it just sits there.
Okay.
So it's called the heat island effect. Effectively, you have this little hot spot where all that solar radiation is generating heat and it's not going.
I just want to know if I haven't heard the term before.
Yep.
All right, anybody, Nanette, was that everything? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Anybody have any other questions for Nanette on this? If not, can I have a motion?
So moved, Brown.
Okay.
Second, Trithel.
All in favor of it?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Nanette.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the bill list. Are there any questions in regards to the bill list? If not, can I have a motion? Make a motion.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Brown,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Dash,
Yes.
Heist,
Yes.
Sefton, Trithol,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Timbers,
Yes.
Yes. Mayor, any closing comments?
No, I don't have any. Just remember to sign up for the cleanup day. All the information is on the Facebook page and also Instagram. We're really in need of people to go around and clean up their alleyways. That was a big issue that was brought up at the Green Team meeting the other night. So hopefully we'll collect a mass amount of trash. Right, Nanette?
Is that
Yeah,
everything?
definitely want to clean up the city.
Is that everything, Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Heist?
Nothing.
Councilwoman Sefton? Yeah, Councilwoman Brown?
I just wanted to ask you if Keith Adams had reached out to you, because I hadn't heard from him. So I was wondering if maybe he contacted you again in regards to the stop sign thing.
No, he has not. Would you elaborate on that for those that don't know about it, please?
Okay, so this might actually be of interest to Nanette Galloway. I actually saw in Margate and Ventnor where they have little solar things on top of the stop signs. And when you get a certain amount of feet, it activates the stop sign and all around the stop sign turns red. So I was thinking, because we're adding new stop signs in town, and usually when you have people that are used to traveling a route, they don't really pay attention to when there's new signage. So my thought was to reduce the accidents and to also make people aware of the stop signs to see if it would be cost efficient for the city to try to implicate that into our town.
Well, one thing I can say that we do is we usually, when we did it on St. Louis Avenue, when we added stop signs, we borrow the county sign that indicates that there has been a change in the traffic patterns, which alerts the community to it. So if that in fact is not cost effective to implement in the city, then the other alternative would be to ask Mark to reach out to the county once again to get those signs that we can alert people that there are stop signs and there's a different traffic pattern now.
May I address Councilwoman Brown?
Yes.
I cover Ventnor, Margate, and Longport, and they did purchase those signs. They do come with a cost. I don't think they're cheap, but they did have an impact on slowing traffic, and it helped those cities a lot when they did implement them. But
My
there
thought
is a
was
cost.
just at the new intersections, just to, even if it's like for a short time, just to let people know that there's a change in traffic patterns. Because I remembered when we added the four-way stop at St. Louis, at first it's deadly going through there, because people that aren't paying attention or just used to the regular traffic pattern aren't paying attention to the fact that it's a four-way stop now. And they're either running it or almost hitting you when you're going through it. People are just now, from what I see, adhering to the fact that it's a four-way stop there. So that's why when I saw the sign, I thought that would be a good idea, because we are adding new stop signs in town.
It is a great idea, but again, there's just a cost associated with it.
Oh, naturally, I'm sure. I just wanted to see if it would even be feasible. It was just a question. That was it. Even if it would be feasible, that's what I was trying to see.
Well, that comes out of the public works budget, so probably not. However, I do know that those signs on St. Louis Avenue were there for quite some time.
Yes,
And that they weren't as effective that they should have been based on your testimony. However, we could keep them there for longer if possible.
Because one of the intersections that's going to be done is an intersection I use every time I leave my house, and it's bad. And I don't see people just seeing a stop sign and stopping there. Honestly, I really don't. When they're coming across up Beethoven, those people, they do not slow down. They just started slowing down on Arago because there's a bump. And you still, day in and day out, hear people scraping the bottom of their cars. So that's why I'm just saying that, we might want to think of another way to alert people to traffic patterns than the way we did with St. Louis Avenue. That's all.
I can reach out to Mark Emmer, the director, and make sure that he is aware that he has to do something to get those signs there to alert people. If that's all we can do at this point in time, I guess that's all we can do, but I will reach out to him. Thank you.
Thank you.
so obviously I can't speak to the budget side of that conversation, but from a technical standpoint, the solar stop signs are obviously technically feasible. But they are a bit costly, as Ms. Galloway indicated. The variable message signs from the county is a good option that doesn't usually cost you anything. There's a couple other things you can do. You can place stop sign ahead signs in advance of the stop signs, so people have two chances to notice that there's something new there. And the other thing you can do is they make a sign that's approved by the METCD. That's a yellow sign that goes above the stop sign and says new, and it's almost as big as the stop sign, so it's pretty obnoxious looking. So yeah, that's another thing that you can do that's pretty cheap. That might be a $30 sign instead of $1,000 in an LED solar lighted sign.
Ryan, can they be removed to be used like later on if we put
Well,
another stop?
The new signs are supposed to be removed after 6 months. They're not supposed to be in place for more than 6
The ones
months.
that say no, so then we
Yeah,
could
so you
reuse
could buy them, and
as
then anytime you put up new stop signs, you can just put them in
well.
6 months and take them down.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
Councilman Dash.
I'd just like to, I don't have a lot, just like to just say, everyone on council and everyone that's participating in these budget workshops is really interested in keeping the tax rate as low as possible. So we're gonna continue to work at it, and hopefully we'll get that 5.5 cents down even lower. But I'd just like to just say, we're all working on it. That's all I got.
Thank you. Councilman Trifle.
One thing I forgot to state when I made the comment about the vaccines, is there's no cost, no insurance, no documentation that's required, for these vaccines. All we're going to do is when you report there, you just give your name and that's it. Okay, so if anybody is worried about documentation or health insurance, none is asked and none is don't have to be provided. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Timbers.
All right, I just kind of wanted to piggyback on Scott. I looked up on covid19.nj.gov, and they were talking about the eligibility for vaccinations. It's going to be updated March 29th for frontline essential workers and the following categories. that are eligible for vaccination. They give a list, and on there is elections personnel. That may work for the clerk's office, and that's as of March 29th, but they can go on and check it and see if any of the categories match up with them.
Thank you. And that will be uploaded, you said, on the 29th?
It's updated. It says who is eligible for vaccinations next.
Okay.
And it says as of March 29th, they give a list.
All right, thank you. Anything else? Councilman Ray?
Just a couple things. There was that Miss T-ball and flag football signups. April 10th at 10 o'clock. You can sign your child up for flag football. April 17th at 10 o'clock. You can sign your child up for T-ball. We will be meeting those days for the sports. I think we're up to about 50 or 60 kids. I think about 50 kids for flag football and probably about 30 kids for T-ball. So we're still looking. And also, if any companies out there want to sponsor a flag football team or a T-ball team, please reach out to me. We can use all the donations that we can get. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mason, how much are the sponsorships?
$200 and pays for the hats and the shirts.
Say it again.
$200 for T-ball pays for the shirts and the hats for the kids.
400, is that what you said?
200.
4, 2?
2, 4, what are you saying?
To hear.
2.
Oh, calm down, Tiger. Calm down.
I will reach out to Renault's to see if they could sponsor a team for you.
Yep. Oh, cool. Greatly appreciate it.
All right, Councilwoman Clark.
I'll drop the Clark thing off. Yeah.
Almost forgot me. I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. John Garth, who used his boat to replace the flag over at the lake. Earlier in the week, there was a resident who brought it to our attention that our flag was kind of tattered, and he volunteered to go and replace it for us.
Is that everything?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. All right, can I have a motion to open up the public comment?
I'll make a motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Anybody from the public have any comments?
Hey, this is Tracy. I was just thinking about what Councilman Brown was saying about the stop sign. And I think it was done before when the other new stop signs were in, but I think initially there was an increased police presence with the intersection, and that would be also a really good thing. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public with any comments? Can I have a motion to close? Public comment?
So moved.
Second? Second?
Second.
Thank you. Next thing I have to say is next meeting I will not be present, so please be nice to our pro temp Councilwoman Heights. She'll be running her first meeting.
I may not be present either.
So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Second.
please.
Brown.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, everyone have a good night and a happy holiday.
Easter.
Happy Easter. Happy
Easter.
Easter. Over.
Happy